evening, everybody. Welcome to Ptp After Dark. All right, we got Crazy Chuck with a capital K. Welcome. Rusty Cages, how you doing? And the legend, the man, the myth, the metalhead, Mr. Spazzo Yeti. Welcome. So far, that's all we have over on Pilled. Anybody over on the D-Live, X, or YouTubes, welcome to you. I hope everybody had a wonderful Monday afternoon. I just laid down and relaxed and didn't say a word from the time I shut my stream off until right this minute. I ate some lunch, looked at some TikToks, just kind of relaxed all afternoon, drank some coffee. What's up, a boneless chicken? Margarine and shit. Margarine. Is that what that says? Margarine? Yeah. How you doing today? So we have a few things, a couple of things from this morning's show that I still want to go over. But I found this clip on TikTok from this guy. I don't know who this guy is. I've never seen him before. Hold on, what's that name? Pens, Lucky Hilljack. Okay. Duppy, what's happening? Butter, gotcha. Band Mom, how you doing? Margarine and shit. That was the first words, huh? What's up, Takab? How you doing? And Jim Bob, good evening. When I saw this, I watched it like 2 or 3 times because it's very short. But let me clear a page here real quick. But I believe, and I said this when it happened, I've been saying this quite often in the last few weeks pertaining to the assassination of Donald Trump. And I wholeheartedly believe that this was the plan to begin with. Henry 4570, welcome. So let's listen to this guy real quick before we get into everything else.
On Trump's head exploding on national TV, which means...
Let me rewind it. I'm going to start over again.
On Trump's head...
Like I said, I don't know who this guy is, and it didn't have his name in the description. So listen to what he said.
They were counting on Trump's head exploding on national TV, which means they would have 2 candidates, neither of which anyone voted for, to become president of the United States. And you guys don't think this is communism? These are the enemies.
Gotcha.
It's not me. It's not you. It's not the black guy or the white guy or the woman or the gay person or the straight person. It's these fucking tyrants, bro. And if we don't figure that out real quick, we're in deep shit. And we won't survive another 4 years as a fucking country. We'll be invaded or it will completely collapse. And your life will become dog shit. Great Depression all over again. Exactly 100 years later.
There's not a word that I can say that this guy is not speaking the truth on. That's exactly what they wanted to happen, because that's exactly how Marxism, basically the communist agenda, is unelected bureaucrats running the proletariat, running the people, basically. And if Donald Trump would have been assassinated that day, what's up, Hanging AZ? That's what we would have had. A coup d'etat against Joe Biden, which we did have, installing Kamala Harris as the nominee for president, and the Republicans would have put another unelected person as a presidential nominee. And the American people will have voted for what they wanted to be put in there. Not us, but them. What's up, Lightspear? Did you see the video? Yeah, boneless chicken. Send it to my DM. I want to check that out if you can, because I've been watching a lot of stuff about this. There's been people having some. Let me take this off the screen. There's been a lot of people putting out a lot of interesting podcasts about echoes and sounds and things that are being reported on now by the FBI. Actually, hello, Trick Pony. There are people who are telling President Trump that he should not go to the meeting with the FBI as a victim. You know how they debrief victims, that it's not safe. I don't know if that's accurate information. Like I said, just what I'm hearing. But the Sean Joe, welcome. Thank you for the cookie. I'm not going to say, because I really do not believe that Donald Trump was involved in this. I don't believe that at all. Absolutely not. Do I believe that? What's up, Trash Man Green? Thank you for the cookie. Appreciate it. Do I believe that they tried to take Donald Trump out to instill an unelected candidate on the Republican and the Democrat side? Yeah, I do. And everybody knows. Thank you, a boneless chicken. I am not the I hate to have to repeat myself, but I am not the uber conspiracy theorist unless I see evidence of stuff that's happening, because I think it's doing people a disservice to just take people's words at face value. But when you see the mounting evidence of how this political system in the United States, respectively, is being chomped up on the Democratic ticket to basically install somebody who is unelected and unelectable. Remember, Kamala Harris, before she became vice president, had to drop out of the race after she lost a primary in her home state of California. She was the most unpopular candidate running for president. Now, all of a sudden, the entire country is behind her. Gambera, how you doing? I just don't believe that these things are organic. Yet, okay, so I'm just gonna say Hilljack. How about that? We'll just say Hilljack because that's easy for me. We probably looked at the same thing. Don't shake hands. Don't drink water that they offer you. Don't take any food, anything from anybody. And Mo Phillips, Maddie's mom, how you doing? We probably looked at the same articles, but this is something that I believe was supposed to happen. That whether or not it was a bullet or a portion of a bullet or something, that whatever was meant to go right through his forehead and to put him down. It wasn't meant to clip his ear. So, anyway, when you look at conspiracy theories like, MK Ultra or anything that a conservative says, basically is a conspiracy theory. When the evidence starts mounting and piling itself up, it's kind of hard to literally ignore it. But I'm telling you, I don't think Donald Trump had anything to do with this. I truly think he was the victim of an assassination attempt that failed horribly. And I don't think they're done yet. I admire him for saying he wants to go back to Butler and do another open air rally. I wouldn't advise it, but I admire him for it. Gambera, thank you for the phone. Appreciate that. Welcome. Impeach them all. How you doing? Okay. But you know what I want to do? I want to play that clip just one more time so you guys really understand where I'm coming from. That this guy really hits it for me. I'm gonna try and find out who he is, see if he has a podcast or is he just a guest or something, because he makes a whole lot of sense. So I'm gonna play it one more time.
Trump's head exploding on national TV, which means they would have two candidates, neither of which anyone voted for to become president of the United States. And you guys don't think this is communism? These are the enemy. It's not me. It's not you. It's not the black guy or the white guy or the woman or the gay person or the straight person. It's these fucking tyrants, bro. And if we don't figure that out real quick, we're in deep shit. And we won't survive another 4 years as a fucking country. We'll be invaded or it will completely collapse. And your life will become dog shit. Great Depression all over again. Exactly 100 years later.
I can't not agree. It's hard not to agree. Anyway, we'll stop with that. We'll move on. So the Patriot game, welcome. I'm not sure if that's a correct statement, Patriot game, that you're saying that this isn't the days of Kennedy, because this is exactly why they air-conditioned Kennedy, because Kennedy couldn't be bought. Donald Trump made a speech. What's up, Smokey Randy? What jar behind me? I don't know. President Trump made a speech saying that he didn't take a salary. That he didn't take a salary. Oh, it's my cat meowing out there. I said, what the hell is that? By law, the president has to take a salary, $1. That's what Donald Trump took, was $1. The only other president to not take a salary, meaning the entirety of his salary, was John F. Kennedy, who took $1. The rest of it, he donated to charity. Oh, those are pickles, Randy. Those are Mrs. PTP's pickles. That's what they are. It's not olive oil. That's right, Mo. It's the pickle jar. Now, this is the same thing when you see, it's kind of, I'll use this kind of analogy. People in in the mafia, when you can't buy somebody, those guys have no use for you. Because you can impose whatever will you want, and no amount of money is going to sway you. As long as your family's protected, no amount of money can sway you. And I make that analogy because politicians and organized crime are one and the same. When you can't buy a politician, something happens to that politician. There's not very many times, hello, Just Josie, there's not very many times that you hear, like we did with Bob Menendez, a politician getting arrested, tried, and convicted of bribery. You don't hear that hardly at all, unless it's so blatant in your face, like they did with Al Franken, with the Me Too movement, with that picture of him pretending to grab some woman's boobs. Otherwise, they would have never bothered with him. Bob Menendez, if he wasn't bragging about gold and diamonds and cash and this, that, and the other thing, he would have never been investigated. Donald Trump can't be bought. How do you buy somebody who's a billionaire? Whose family, sons, daughters, wives, are all multimillionaires? How do you buy that? You don't. So when he becomes an influencer in political power and goes up against the industrial complex, whether it be political or military, you have no choice but to take it out, like they did to Kennedy, like they wanted to do to Roosevelt, like they wanted to do to Donald Trump. Good evening, sleigh bells. Nope. All right. So, sticking with the what's up, Starfire? How you doing? Sticking with the unelected bureaucrats coming into play. We're going to play this clip about vice presidents for Democrats.
Biden White House Communications Director Kate Bedingfield, and I would like to say we have shown enormous restraint so far in this broadcast. It's 8:39 a.m., and I don't think we've mentioned the Veep stakes once. I'm ending that restraint right now. They just mentioned it right there, but it took a long time. And Kate, I want to play some sound for you because the contenders were out this weekend, including one who hasn't received quite as much attention, and that's Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg, who went on Fox where he's very comfortable, and he went on the attack. Listen.
People think that crime is up when crime is down under Joe Biden and crime was up under Donald Trump. Now, I don't know how often that gets reported on this network, so if you're watching this at home, do yourself a favor and look up the data.
Well, we invite that.
Great.
Now, I want to stop it there for a second, because that is an entire fabrication. When he says that crime was up during Donald Trump's and down during Joe Biden's administration. We have to look at the way that the New York, California, Oregon, Washington, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, all of these Democrat-run New Jersey strongholds, how they changed the laws to make felonies non-crimes. Now, 100 years ago, back in the late 80s, like 1989, I was a loss prevention agent, which you have to take a course. You have to get your police credential, which was called, I don't know if it's still called this or not, an 832 PC, meaning you take the police requirements and you become a loss prevention agent, meaning you stop people in major stores from shoplifting. Like back then, they had stores like Mervyn's, Robinson's May that carried Louis Vuitton and expensive items, Chanel, things like that. Well, back then, if you walked into one of those stores and you took a lipstick, it was a misdemeanor. If you stole anything more than $250, it was a felony theft. Now here in California, you can steal up to $999.99 before you're even allowed to call the police. So when you decriminalize crime, and this is what goes for all these democratic cities, when you decriminalize crime, when you take bail and you don't charge people for crimes and give them no bail, of course, unreported crimes are going to lower your statistics. Anybody with a ripple and half a brain cell can understand that. So Pete Buttigieg is being disingenuous when he says this. Look at the statistics for the threshold of prosecuting criminals in Democrat strongholds, and you'll get your lower crime rates. It's a fabrication. Remember that. It just took a couple of decades for a simple shoplifting to be a misdemeanor burglary. So you can steal $1,000 worth of shit and still not even be bothered. And then they want to blow sunshine up your ass and say, well, crime was lower. Look what we did. Bullshit on you.
So, okay, two-part question here. Number one, do you think there is any realistic shot for Pete Buttigieg, who doesn't really bring a state necessarily with him? And two, the way he goes about that, the attack rather than defend there, what does that represent in terms of what might be a strategy for the Harris campaign going forward?
By the way, if Pete Buttigieg becomes vice president of the United States, there would only be one person between the president and the vice president that is actually breastfed. Just one. And I'll leave it to you to figure out who is the only person that's ever breastfed a child.
Yeah, well, I think there's absolutely a possibility for Secretary Pete, because here's the thing about the VP conversation. Everybody wants to game out the X's and O's of, who can bring what state and what constituency. And obviously the political calculation is part of the discussion. Of course it is. But ultimately the choice is going to be, who is the person that VP Harris feels has the best connection with, trusts, would be, would have as a governing partner, would have as a reliable, campaign partner, somebody who's going to be able to go out and make the case in an effective and reliable way, which Secretary Pete obviously can. So sometimes I think that the kind of calculation around who has the best elector, who adds the most, electoral benefit, is a little overplayed relative to.
And another thing is that, like she said, Pete Buttigieg doesn't bring anything to the table. Doesn't bring anything to the table. More than likely, if Kamala Harris becomes the presidential nominee for the Democrat political party in the United States, the Shapiro guy from Philadelphia or Pennsylvania is going to be the vice presidential pick, because the Democrats have lost Philadelphia. I keep saying Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They know it. They lost it a long time ago. They've lost the unions. They've lost pretty much the entire state. And Shapiro is very popular there. I don't know why, but he is. So that's my intelligent observation about that. Saying Pete Buttigieg is kind of interesting, but literally brings nothing to the table politically.
What's actually happening inside the
What's up,
campaign
fact finder?
In terms of discussions about who she picks. So I think people should remember that. And for that reason, obviously VP Harris has worked with Secretary Buttigieg in the administration, and of course, as we've all seen many times and just saw yesterday, he's a terrific communicator. In terms of his response there, I mean, it was textbook. It was excellent. He, one thing that he's so great at is, he's always level-headed. He's always calm. He goes back on offense without seeming like he's flustered. And I think that is absolutely what Vice President Harris is going to do over the course of this next 3.5 months, taking it to Trump. She has, all the reason in the world to be on the offensive and to be aggressive. We've seen her campaign kind of put this race in the freedom, versus wanting to take away your freedoms frame, which I think is terrific and resonates with people. And so I think she has every opportunity to be aggressive over this next 3.5 months.
She's going to be aggressive until people start attacking her. Right now, nobody's attacking her. She's shielded right now. Once people start attacking her, and I mean attacking her by going after her record as not only vice president, but as a prosecutor, as the DA for San Francisco, and as everything else, when her affairs start to pop up, and so on and so forth, she's going to get Tulsi Gabbard all over again. When Tulsi Gabbard in the presidential debates did that to her about her record, there was nothing that she said. She had to sit there and take it because it was the truth and she couldn't refute it. If you don't think that the Trump campaign is going to do that the minute that she becomes the official nominee, then you're crazy. She ran California and San Francisco like a penal colony. Her record proves it. But it's all, roses and everything is smelling good now. But wait until they start to go on the offense.
Rita, we just had that graphic of the 6 possible VP picks up there. It's got to be so tempting, and we can put it back up again if you're in the Harris campaign, looking at that, being, geez, Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania is so important. Mark Kelly, Arizona is so important, and then to a lesser extent, Cooper in North Carolina, and then Tim Walz. But that Shapiro and Kelly thing, I mean, could you resist the temptation of picking people who may be very good on paper, but also come from a key state.
But also Nevada and Arizona are battleground states. Nevada's probably going to go for Trump because of the taxing of the tips. Arizona, it's a lost cause. I'm not sure Arizona is even close to being blue anymore.
Well, look at history. The VP pick doesn't need to come from a swing state or a state that's in play or important for the VP pick to be successful, for the ticket to be successful. Look at Paul Ryan when he joined Mitt Romney, Paul Ryan of Wisconsin. Look at Tim Kaine when he joined Hillary Clinton from Virginia. So I'm just saying, it doesn't need to be from this all-important state to be successful. And history tells us that. But as a practical matter, look, I would have loved an all-woman ticket. It does need to be somebody who is not just a male, and I don't even know that it needs to be a white male, but somebody that's got this broader appeal. Shapiro's definitely turned some Republican heads. You see a lot of center-right types say, this is a governor I actually like. And then for Kelly, of course, I mean, we can't discount the fact that he's so well liked in Arizona. The Sun Belt is a place that Democrats need to do better in. So when we look at the numbers, the Veep stakes gets a little, for me, a little sort of, how can I put it, boring. I think Minnesota is exciting because Republicans in Minnesota, I've known, have always been very independently minded, very purple in ways. And I think Tim Walz is turning a lot of heads with Gen Z and millennials. Yeah. He speaks in a practical manner. He's somebody that looks like maybe he might be one thing, but then you peel back the cover and you get a whole lot of what you may like. And I'm talking about you meeting independent voters, center-right people who could come and join that Democrat coalition and help out like they did in 2020.
So there is this landscape of people.
So they admit they need somebody who's going to help with Gen Z. We know that because the people of Gen Z are not the sharpest knives in the lamp. But then again, they're going to put rich white men in that position. And Gen Z will follow anything that these people tell them. So much for diversity.
Who are up for the
Thank you, Sean Joe, for the cookie.
Presidential position with Kamala Harris, including, it seems, Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation. He has made some comments earlier, sort of speaking to what you are talking about, Bakari. Let me let you listen to what he has said over the weekend.
But even before the pandemic, America went into a manufacturing recession, which really hurt places like where I come from in the industrial Midwest. But anyway, my point is, he broke his promise for that kind of economic growth. He broke his promise to pass an infrastructure bill, right?
They're going to keep harping on this because for some reason they think that it's actually working, right? Hey, P-Quest, thank you for the cookie. Welcome. They think it's actually working. The Biden infrastructure bill is almost, as I've said this 2 years ago, is almost identical to the Trump infrastructure bill with $9 billion tacked onto it for social programs. That's it. Remember, when Donald Trump put the infrastructure bill through the House and through the Senate, it was denied in the Senate. It took that long for him to put together. So when they say Joe Biden put the infrastructure bill together, that's a fucking lie. All he did was tack $9 billion onto the end of Donald Trump's and forced it through. And as far as manufacturing goes, how can you say that Donald Trump, under his tariff and tax plan, didn't bring back manufacturing to the United States? But they keep going on with this bullshit because they think that people are going to believe it. This is Nazi propaganda at its finest.
He said he would do that. He failed to do it. The Biden-Harris administration got it done. He even broke his promise to that January 6th mob when he said, I will be at your side when you march down to the Capitol. But he actually did keep two promises. He kept his promise to destroy the right to choose in this country, and he kept his promise on tax cuts for the rich. And if you want to know...
And of course, the tax cuts, we all know, don't benefit just the rich. Because if they did, Joe Biden would have let them expire. But for some reason, the Joe Biden administration didn't let them expire. Or has no intentions of letting them expire. But will she call them out? Would Fox News even question it? I fucking doubt it.
What a second Trump term would be like? I would start by looking at those rare promises that he actually managed to keep.
Bakari, that sounds awfully vice presidential to me.
Oh man, listen, Pete Buttigieg is a bad man, like a bad man. He is one of the best, if not the best communicator we have in the world. Yeah, I mean, that was a colloquialism. There we go. That SAT word I'm using this morning. He is one of our, if not our best communicator. But look, we have Josh Shapiro, Mark Kelly,
Pittsburgh.
Governor Waltz, who's probably not at the top of my list, but I'm not choosing, making some headway. You see Pete Buttigieg, Roy Cooper, the governor of North Carolina. I mean, there are a lot of good choices, a lot of good communicators. There aren't many minuses to the ticket. They bring governing experience. But I know a lot of reporters are chasing this story down about vice president. And I will tell them what I believe to be true, that Kamala Harris is looking for one real thing, which is who will be a governing partner with her, that comfortability, that level of trust. And I know that Pete and his...
They're actually still talking about what Pete Buttigieg did in Indiana. He was an ineffective mayor. He was even more ineffective as transportation secretary. So, where do these people come up with? These people have like exemplary records to run on when the information is right at your fingertips. This is why I said this morning that these people are lazy. They're lazy people, that they have to rely on people like this on the screen to tell them who, what, where, when, and why to vote, because they're too fucking lazy to do their own research.
Husband have a great relationship with the vice president and the second gentleman. I know there's some other relationships with the other candidates, but if Pete Buttigieg is the vice presidential nominee, I'm not sure he will be, but if he is, there will be a robust question of, is the country ready? I'm prayerful that it is, but that will be a question that is asked.
Lance, I'm curious, just turning this on its head, who do you think would be good for the Republicans, for Donald Trump, for Kamala to choose? Someone that you could go after, for example?
I'm going to go back to what I said originally. I think, look, she's got a choice to make on her own. But going back to what Pete Buttigieg was talking about, no one believes what he's saying. Show me a poll where voters actually believe that the economy is headed in the right direction. Show me a poll that people are happy with the cost of living. Show me a poll that said people think, oh, everything at the border is fine or that crime is going down. That is not the case for voters.
And then that's the messed up contrast between the delusional Democrats. I like that word, delusional. The delusional Democrats and reality. In reality, we go to the grocery store and know that inflation's out of control. Or the gas station. Mrs. Ptp the other day said, I went to Costco to fill up on gas because that's where we get our gas, because we have a Costco membership and we get a little bit of a discount. And she said, I was so happy because it was $3.79. $3.79 for a gallon of gas with our discount. And we were happy. Rent is going up. the Fed is going to cut interest rates, which is going to damage the economy even more. But if you're a Democrat, you just need to keep telling people you're in the best economy ever. You're in the best this, the best that. I guess the Joseph Goebbels rule of propaganda is really trying to take effect here.
Out there. So I don't really think it matters who she picks. Again, I go back to it will be Donald Trump versus Kamala Harris at the end of the day. And what has she done to fix the border? Nothing. What has she done? She cast a deciding vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, which sent prices skyrocketing even further in this country.
Yep.
What was her role in the decision making to pull out of Afghanistan? These are all questions voters are going to have, not calling people weird and not really figuring out who she's going to pick as her vice president. They want to know how she's going to govern at the end of the day. And
Spot
based
on
on her record, it's a pretty far left record of governing.
Bakari, you have the last word very quickly. I saw that.
No, I was just going to say he wanted a poll. I was just going to say, go look at the stock market. I mean, look at every economic indicator.
Really? Let's look at the stock market. In the first 3 years of the stock market, and anybody could go back and look at this. I used to say it on my show all the time. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie. It went between 29 to 32 to 31, back and forth. Never hit anything higher than 35,000 because of the uncertainty in the country. Once Donald Trump announced that he was running for president, the stock market started going steadily up. Now I believe it's almost 41. Well, either it is or over 41. Because people can see that if Trump gets back into office, that we're going to be monetarily on an upswing. Thank you for the other cookie. Appreciate that. And that's the only reason why the stock market is going up. Don't tell me because of policies that the Biden and Harris administration has put into place, because that's just a complete fabrication. Instead of investing in America, these people are investing in the military-industrial complex. They're investing in the World Economic Forum. They're investing in everything but America. So the stock market is a reflection of the presidency to come, not the presidency that is.
Figure it out. If you want to have a conversation about cost and like the price of whiting at Piggly Wiggly, then that's fair. We can have that conversation. But if you actually want to look at true economic indicators like job growth, wages, the fact that inflation is actually going down, the stock market, those type of questions, then all of those indicators are pointing in the right direction. But I like this conversation. It's better than most conversations we have when we're talking about the trash that Donald Trump spews.
Bakari Sellers, Lance Drover, thank you both.
Right, talking about the trash that Donald Trump speaks. You don't have to listen to Donald Trump. You don't. All you have to do is look at the statistics, particularly governmental statistics. Joe Biden claims we've brought 16 million jobs back. We've created 16 million jobs, when in actuality, they've created a few 100,000 over 4 years, because 99% of those jobs were COVID related. It's not hard to figure out. Go to the Department of Labor and Statistics and figure it out. But because of the laziness of this generation, they'll take people's words for it and say, oh, of course, Donald Trump is lying. Okay. And I think that lady's right. Thank you, Sleigh Bells. Thank you for the cookie. Your bold-faced lies. Because everything that Donald Trump did before they threw COVID into the mix to fuck everything up was on an upward swing. Everything. I personally know people like me who benefited from his tax cuts. Bonuses from their companies, taking them out of a higher tax bracket and lowering their tax bracket so they had to pay a little bit less in federal taxes, while their company gave them bonuses because they were paying less taxes. So you can't tell the people who are on the ground that that shit's not working or didn't work, because it did. And they have to rely on the ignorant and lazy voter, the low IQ voter, like the Harry Sissons and all of those little TikTokers who get paid to promote this propaganda. They have to rely on them to push that propaganda out to the masses of young people who don't have any interest in doing their own research. Not all, but most. So in all respect, who gives a shit who she runs for vice president? It's all predetermined. It's all predetermined. More than likely, it's going to be Shapiro from Pennsylvania. Kamala Harris has a Jew problem. She needs Pennsylvania, one of the biggest swing states out there. She needs it. More than Arizona, more than Nevada, or New Mexico, or anything else. They need Pennsylvania. And right now, Pennsylvania is not looking too good. Not looking too good at all. Matter of fact, Pennsylvania, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there's a legend living in Pennsylvania. A couple of legends. Well, let's not say a couple, but the man, the myth, and the legend, Mr. Spazzo Yeti, is a Pennsylvanian. He's a legend. Just had to bring that out there. Love you, Spaz. Okay. Yeah. Even with my voice the way that it sounds, I still feel compelled to come here and point all this shit out. As crappy, I'm gonna run this last clip, and as crappy as I feel right now, I feel that I need to do this because I want to point out to everybody who's watching and everybody who's gonna watch how we, as a country, are folding to the ignorance of these people. And the sad part is, people are doing it willingly. They're doing it willingly without any remorse. And I find that my biggest motivator. So, and you know, before I even get cracking on this TYT clip, I want to thank the Mats for putting that raid button on the podcasts, because I see a lot of names in my show now that I haven't seen before, which are coming from other people's chats who may not have wanted to look or listen to what I was saying, or just maybe didn't have time or whatever. And I think that was a great feature to add to the ever-growing Build platform, because it's letting us reach more people, smaller podcasters that we can send our people to, and they can send them to us to get better and different perspectives on other things. So I appreciate you guys for constantly improving the platform. So just remember, every pill, every cookie or ship or whatever that you give me, 25% goes to these guys and improving this platform so we can get out the message. Not only keeps me on the air with the bills being paid, but also grows this platform. And I think that's a good thing, because there's not any other platform, at least in my experience, that allows me to say the things that I say in the manner that I say them, unabated. So good job, guys. I knew I wanted to thank you guys for that, and I just keep forgetting, but appreciate all their hard work. And I also appreciate all my people who are here, all their hard work that they put in every day with your comments and your questions and all your input into my show, all the messages and everything. Without you guys, I wouldn't have made it through the hardest part of my life right now. So I'm here to do this. So just know that. And I know I say that often. It's because I mean it from my heart. Thank you guys, Sherry Pittsburgh, Ohio Kimmy, for the cookies. All right, let's get cracking with the TYT.
The elected Attorney General, as I've mentioned, of California. Before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. In those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who ripped off consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
Presumptive Democratic presidential nominee Kamala Harris is now leaning into her history as a prosecutor and district attorney to essentially frame herself as a cop who's going to stop convicted felon Donald Trump.
And I'm going to tell you what, that thing about her being a prosecutor is not going to bode well for her. Because as a prosecutor, she did extreme harm to the black community. I'm not going to get into it now. I'm sure we'll hear about it in a few. But I don't think that strategy for her is going to bode very well.
But her history shows that she's an easy target for both sides of the political aisle because she's been everything to everyone depending on what is popular at any given moment. She went from being kind of tough on crime to being much softer on crime. And since she doesn't really have like a guiding principle on this issue, again, both sides get to pick and choose which parts of her past to attack her on. So look, Harris has written 2 books about her time as a prosecutor and attorney general. So she published Smart on Crime, a career prosecutor's plan to make us safer. And that was near the end of her tenure as a district attorney in 2009. Harris described herself as a prosecutor who was tough on crime by being smart on crime. Said she promoted programs to fix recidivism and made improving my office's felony conviction rates my #1 priority. But she then changed her idea.
Yeah, by convicting people of low-level marijuana crimes. charging them for felonies. That's how she boosted her felony conviction rate.
After the fatal police shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, that happened in 2014, of course, Harris embraced calls for criminal justice reform. In her 2019 memoir, The Truths We Hold, An American Journey, Harris described herself as a progressive prosecutor, writing, quote, "I knew I was there for the victims, both the victims of crimes committed and the victims of a broken criminal justice system. For me, to be a progressive prosecutor is to understand and act on this dichotomy." So, as a result of this, you have Donald Trump, for instance, attacking Kamala Harris's record as a prosecutor and essentially saying that she is too soft on crime. In fact, I've seen a lot of conservatives make a similar argument. Trump and his allies are trying to emphasize the progressive part of her identity. And on Tuesday, Trump attacked Harris as a radical left person and blamed current crime in the city, in cities on her tenure as a district attorney, saying, quote, "Really, what you should do is take a look at San Francisco now."
Jim Bob, you're absolutely right. 100%. That's the biggest contribution that you can ever give me, or anybody, is to keep me or everybody else in your prayers. You're 100% correct, my brother.
Compared to before she became the district attorney, and you'll see what she'll do to our country. And I have to be honest, he's not entirely wrong. So I'm gonna get into what I mean by that with specific examples in just a moment.
Hey, don't scroll away. Come back. Because before the video continues, we just want to urge you to lend your support to TYT. You power our honest reporting. You do it at tyt.com/team.
He said, give your support to PTP, not TYT.
And we love you for it.
What are your thoughts?
I think he's pretty wrong. So there's two ways that you can look at Kamala Harris's record. I'm gonna get to that in a sec. But on Trump's comment, she left in 2017. So now we're blaming everything from 2013 to now on Kamala Harris.
She championed Prop 47, which
she kind of championed, not really. I mean, maybe you know something I don't know, but I don't believe she was on the record on Prop 47. And so look, I think blaming all of San Francisco today on Kamala Harris is definitely a bridge too far, in my opinion.
That I agree with. That I definitely agree with.
Okay.
But to say that she had nothing to do with loosening some of the laws.
I'm not saying nothing. I'm not saying nothing. We're gonna get to that record. But as Anna's presenting that record to you guys, look, my thought on it is, you could look at it as oh, she's a politician trying to have it both ways. And depending on which way the wind is blowing, she's going in that direction.
Yep.
You could also look at it as, well, it's kind of a savvy person and forget the politics of it, not extreme on either side. So she wants to be tough on crime, but she doesn't want to put away people who are not, serious criminals and who actually can be reformed. And you can think that's a pretty reasonable, moderate position. So, and by the way, both of those things can be true. Okay, so let's hear out the record and then discuss.
Okay.
It's actually on my ceiling, Smokey Randy.
Okay, so before I get to California specifically, I think it's important for people to understand what exactly conservatives are using to attack her, what Trump supporters are using to attack her. So she did help raise money for something known as the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which provided bail for those suspected of committing violent crimes. And so here's the tweet that they're pointing to. This dates back to June 1st of 2020. She provided a link for the fund and said, if you're able to chip in now to the Minnesota Freedom Fund to help post bail for those protesting on the ground in Minnesota. So look, she might have been unaware of how that money was going to be used. Sometimes there's a bait and switch with these types of efforts.
Really? You're unaware of how the money's going to be used? So you would just, as a senator, you would just retweet or whatever, something like that without having looked into it or have your staff looked into it? What if it was money to facilitate child sex trafficking? You just don't even look into it? How stupid is that?
She probably thought, look, there's all sorts of innocent protesters who are getting swept up and arrested as a result of, the rioters exploiting the protests and causing all this damage. And so there should be a bail fund so they can, at least be able to get bailed out before their trial date. But the right is currently attacking her for this because, let's go to this excerpt from an ABC News article. Sean Michael Tillman, a repeat felon, shot and killed a passenger on a light rail platform in St. Paul, Minnesota in May after reportedly being released from bail on April 29th for indecent exposure, thanks to the Minnesota Freedom Fund. So they're pointing to that as a way of attacking her. And I do think that that kind of attack is probably going to be somewhat effective, especially in areas of the country where we've seen certain people get out with no cash bail again and again and again, only to commit all sorts of violent crimes.
Yeah, so.
And so do you think that that's an attribute to Kamala Harris when she's going to try and put her record out there? Right, because it doesn't matter. Anything that happens in the world is Donald Trump's fault. How many people in California have been killed because of the policies that people like her have put in place as a senator, as a representative of the state? No cash bail, no this, no that. That went out after being arrested and molested children or murdered people. I'm telling you now, it's not going to be pleasant once they really look at her record and see what she's done and what she's still doing.
Again, she's got both sides. And so I didn't see anything in there, and obviously we might debate this, that where I thought, wow, she's really supporting like radical left or defund the police. So in that case, she's supporting getting protesters out on bail.
That was what her intent was.
Okay, that's not that bad. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it does.
Yeah, it sounds pretty good until one of those protesters shoots somebody in the face where they should have been in jail because they committed a crime. Or they broke into somebody's house and raped a grandmother. So on and so forth. That's pretty good.
Seemed pretty good. Just like voting in favor of Prop 47 in California sounded pretty good. But then it turned out that they reclassified all sorts of violent crimes, including child sex trafficking, domestic violence like strangulation, from felonies to misdemeanors.
So, okay, real quick on Prop 47. So if you don't live in California, there's no reason for you to know it.
And before he says anything, this is exactly what I was talking about with Pete Buttigieg. They take the crimes like trying to strangle somebody and make them misdemeanors or not even a charge. Child sex trafficking, it's okay. We don't have to put that on the books. You see what I'm saying? That's how you lower statistics for crime in Democratic strongholds. Who is this? Who raided my channel? Breaking Spectre. Thank you for the raid. Appreciate that.
But we voted on a ballot measure, and to be fair, this was us, the people of California that voted on it. Although the ballot measures are often very confusing, this is a perfect example of it. And we said that we would move some felonies to misdemeanors. But I went back and looked at the text of Prop 47, and it doesn't say any of the crimes.
No, it doesn't.
So then, like, how could you put up a ballot measure and say we're going to move some felonies to misdemeanors and not tell us which felonies? And so then when they did this thing where, oh yeah, it made it seem like it was like no big deal felonies, like
nonviolent drug possession.
Nonviolent drug possession. Okay, I probably voted for it, to be honest.
I voted for it. I remember voting for it
No, I
because I
didn't.
thought that it was common sense criminal justice reform. And it was a total bait and switch. And I'm supposed to pretend like it was a great proposition that I should be proud of voting in favor of. But no, it was a bait and switch. I want people who
And she's absolutely right. Because I remember voting for Prop 47, and it was a bait and switch. Right? Low-level drug crimes, non-violent crimes. People shouldn't be prosecuted and sent to prison. Absolutely. But you're also including attempted murder with a firearm, strangulation, child sex trafficking. They wanted to lower this consent to 12. 12. That's a bait and switch.
are trafficking children, okay, for disgusting, sexual abuse, to be in prison. That's where they belong. They belong
right.
in prison if they're trafficking children.
So
Doing strangling his wife, he should be in prison.
yeah, it's just outrageous how vague that that ballot measure was. Okay, now Anna, what I saw in Kamala Harris was that she was, as usual with Kamala Harris, didn't make a comment on Prop 47. So anyone who likes Prop 47 or hates Prop 47 can then put in their desires into that empty vessel. I don't mean Kamala Harris overall. I mean that particular position was an empty vessel. Am I seeing it wrong or no?
Well, let me give you more, because there's more. Again, her record is super mixed, and it depends on what's hot at the moment. So when tough on crime was hot, she went with tough on crime. When soft on crime was hot, she went with soft on crime. So here's another example of that. As Attorney General of California, she pushed for prison reform, which is good because the prisons were awful, right? I thought prison reform meant, hey, the conditions are disgusting and inhumane, and we must improve the conditions.
Yep.
No, in California, they went in an opposite direction. Why don't we actually save the state some money, shut the prisons down entirely, and just release people? De-incarceration. That was the policy that she actually.
And we have to remember, because I live in California, I remember this shit. Jerry Brown and Gavin Newsom, when Jerry Brown was governor, Gavin Newsom was vice governor, Kamala Harris was the attorney general. Nancy Pelosi, along with those other miscreants, were pushing to build, with federal funds, for-profit prisons in California. The ones that she's talking about are closing down state prisons, not improving them, but funding for-profit prisons here in California.
Actually pushed for. And so what was the result of that? Well, let's get to those details. As of last week, prison officials reported there was 92,480 people locked up in California's prison systems, down from a height of more than 156,000 inmates during the early 2010s before the law was passed. So this was one of the laws that she championed, okay? Now, California's reforms created all sorts of problems, including, well, a giant spike in crime. So the California State Attorney General's office reported that from 2014 to 2023, violent crime had risen by more than 30%, including jumps in rapes, aggravated assaults, and murders. I know some of the leftists out there think that when I talk about a spike in crime, I'm just talking about shoplifting. No, I'm talking about rape, I'm talking about murder, I'm talking about things that terrorize communities, especially marginalized communities that you purport to care about but don't care about at all. So that's the kind of stuff they're gonna attack her on. That's the reality.
That's right.
But what's amazing is you go to the left and they're attacking her for being a cop and for being too tough on crime.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, that's the nature of a politician who's trying to be, depending on your framing, moderate or wishy-washy, right? So for example, she actually did hold some police departments in California accountable on training, which I love. I think that was the #1 issue. I've talked a lot about that.
Freedom?
They're too quick to shoot. They get taught that disrespecting a police officer is like the biggest crime in America, etc. And she held some of those departments accountable. That's great. On the other hand, when a cop committed a crime, she almost never prosecuted them. And so, activists, and I don't mean like far left activists, they're just people who care about police reform.
I'm
good
critical
people.
of that. I'm critical of that.
Yeah.
If a cop actually carries out abuse and is terrorizing the community that he's supposed to be serving, he should be prosecuted. She should be prosecuted. So,
right, and she wouldn't.
Yeah.
So, an incredibly mixed bag here.
Yeah. So here's the other thing that, in general, the left has been kind of critical of her in the past. But I actually think this is a good thing because it shows that she was an effective prosecutor. So felony conviction rates rose under Harris when she was a district attorney from 52% to 71%, and gun crime convictions rose to 92%, meaning she didn't just prosecute and fail to convict, she would prosecute and she would convict. And that was in the first 5 years that she was in office, according to her book. We are sending 3 times as many offenders to state prison as we were in 2001, 3 years before I took office, Harris wrote. She also increased convictions for drug sellers from 56% in 2003 to 74% in 2008, Harris noted. So
are we supposed to give her a cookie for doing her job? That's your job. You sell drugs, you go to prison. You use a gun in a crime, you go to prison. That's what the district attorney is supposed to do. Yay. I'm not going to give her kudos for doing her job when she's doing it correctly.
I've got no love for the drug traffickers, but for people who are struggling with addiction, people who are caught with possession,
exactly.
I do not want them to be thrown in prison. I do want the system to actually have a program in place to help them, and California actually used to have that. They were called drug courts, and essentially if someone was addicted to drugs and were committing crimes as a result of that addiction, the courts would give them an option. Either you go to jail or you go to rehabilitation, you get clean. And most people would choose the second option. That's the obvious option. And it would help them, a lot of people, get past their addiction.
Many years ago, I had a friend, then his wife had some issues, and I sponsored her to go through that program that she's actually talking about. To take her through the rehab, to be her, kind of like her, like if you go to AAA, not AAA, Alcoholics Anonymous, to be like their sponsor, but to help them through stuff and, things like that. Her husband couldn't do it, but I could. So that program actually turned her life around, at least for a little while. And then we kind of lost touch years and years later. And I don't know whatever happened to her, but that program actually worked. And now it doesn't exist.
That was a much better model.
Well, this is the best argument for Kamala Harris on this issue, if you ask me. And I am actually moved by it a little bit, which is she says, and she delivered, and you can see it in the stat, I prosecuted and convicted a record number of serious felons.
Exactly.
But if you were a low-level offender that was just, did some recreational drug use, etc., I put those people into more of a rehab track.
Exactly.
But that's exactly what I would want to.
She didn't do that. She put them in state prison with everybody else to boost her conviction ratings. That's what she did. Once the programs were eliminated, she prosecuted everybody and then lied on a lot of people to keep them in prison.
Prosecutor to do. I don't want you to be too tough on low-level offenders that you could actually rehabilitate and get on a better track. And I don't want you to be too soft on really serious criminals. So you can argue that's what a great majority of citizens want. So you could say, hey, that's a pretty good record.
Yeah, and look, I'm not saying she was perfect as a prosecutor. There's certainly areas that I can be critical of, including the unwillingness to prosecute cops who abuse their power. But there's this there's this myth going around about how she was like really throwing the book at people who were caught with possession, but that's actually not true. She championed a program at that time that offered low-level drug dealers, low-level drug dealers, right? So random person on the corner selling whatever. Instead of throwing that person in prison, offered them an opportunity to receive a high school diploma, job training, and access to available work.
When she was running for senator, there were huge protests from people who she had put in jail or in prison for small drug possessions. That some people had to go to the California Supreme Court to get let out of prison when their sentence was up because she refused to let them out of prison. So that's being disingenuous. All you have to do is go back and look at the people who filed formal complaints on her about that. Hundreds and hundreds of them.
Instead of prison sentences. I can get behind that. I like that. That's smart.
Yeah.
So
look, as I read the whole record, Anna, and reread a lot of it because we'd covered some of it before, I walked away thinking, is she a politician that will take a convenient position to be painted as a moderate? Yes.
No.
But was she actually moderate on this issue?
No.
And did she, execute her office, the responsibilities of her office in a way that a majority of citizens in California and in the country would agree with, and I would agree with? Yeah, I also think that's true. So if every politician moderated, maybe just to get votes, but did the right thing, I would take that. So when I look,
and this is somebody who's caught between a rock and a hard place, because he has to get behind Kamala because his company is failing. So he has to get behind her, even though all the evidence is pointing against it. He's still protecting her. I got to give the broad over here, Kasparian, some props for pointing that shit out that she's pointing out.
Look at Kamala Harris's record now in retrospect, at least on this issue. And I've criticized her in the past for this, and I did in 2020. But given what's happened over the last 4 years, I would now say I like Kamala Harris's positions on this and her track record overall. And I can see how you would disagree depending on where you're on the political spectrum. If you're far left and thought she should have let out all 150,000 persons, I don't know. I know I'm straw manning, right?
Not by much.
Okay, then you don't like her, and then you'll think she's a cop, right? If you think, oh, I don't even want low-level offenders, getting away with it. I want the book thrown at every person who's ever looked at a cop. Then you're going to think she's too liberal. But I think a lot of people are going to like this record.
Yeah, I think her record as district attorney was actually, for the most part, there were definitely some flaws, but for the most part, pretty good. And I hope she taps into that rather than pandering to.
Remember, in 2020, Kamala Harris couldn't even win her own state of California primary because of what she did here. So how are you saying that people are automatically gonna like it? That's just kind of stupid.
Those who think that there shouldn't be any law and order.
Right, but if she did it just for political reasons, I don't really care, because all I care about is it the right policy or is it not?
Agreed.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really.
That's such a pandering crock of shit from Chunk Yogurt. Is it the right policy or not? If that was the only reason why you cared about a political candidate, you'd be voting for Donald Trump. Because all of his policies are spot on. But that's just not the case. Chunk Yogurt and the TYT are in a very, very rough spot. They lost a lot of cash when they went against Joe Biden after promoting him during the election. And then when they flipped on them, they lost a ton of their audience. And if you don't believe me, or you want to verify that, go on YouTube, go on to the Young Turks when they're live streaming. Right? They live stream a lot, more than me. They got 6 million, almost 6 million subscribers on YouTube and less than 200 people watching their live streams. This is Chunk Yogurt trying to get his viewers back. He's going to get behind Kamala, hook, line, and sinker. But like I said, you got to give Abel Kasparian there props for pointing out a lot of her bullshit that she has. And the Trump administration in the coming weeks, when she gets the nomination, is going to hammer this with a 50-pound sledge, because her policies are not just progressive, they're dangerous. Anyway, that's right. He's still showing he's a shill. All right, so guys, that is all the show that I have for tonight. A reminder for tomorrow. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow in LA, down in Santa Monica. I have to do a lung scan for my oncologist, which is going to take a while. So there will be no show tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Hopefully I scheduled it early enough to where we can be home in plenty of time to have the That's a Great Question podcast tomorrow night at 6 o'clock with Spaz, Warrior in the Garden, and Boiling Point live Reverend Rant to talk about stuff that's been happening. I'm not looking forward to the CAT scan tomorrow. The CAT scan I took last week was really disappointing results for me, and I'm gonna need your guys' prayers to make sure this one is much better than the last one. So with that being said, please keep me in your prayers for tomorrow. That all this shit that we're doing here is working out. Let me thank everybody over on X, DLive, and YouTube for hanging out and watching the show. And of course, everybody on pilled.net, the foxhole that contributed to the show, gold pills, red pills, comments, questions, blue pills, doesn't matter. I'm going to set up a raid. I'm going to set up a raid, and I want everybody to go to this guy's channel and give him a blue pill. Okay? Thank you, Eagle Freedom. And of course, when I get the results of tomorrow's CT scan, I will absolutely share those results with you, good or bad, because you're my family, and I believe you guys deserve to know everything. So I want to be completely transparent with my health, because you guys are supporting me through all of this crap, and I love you for it. Thong Chaser, thank you for the cookie. Okay, I'm just going to end the show and send you guys over to the man, the myth, the legend, and go give him a blue pill. Tell him it's from PTP with love. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow night. Thanks for hanging out. Bye-bye.